to get it in. So thanks for joining us tonight for Talk Money Tuesday, where we are closing out with our So Emotional series with an Ask Me Anything session. So it's your girl, Demelza, the Retirement Money Kid, and we want to hear from you. So I'm going to bring in the one and only Coach Ham so we can go ahead and get it in. Hold on one second here. Want to make sure she's going in. Added her to the hey, what's going on? What's going on?
What is up?
Whoa. Got a little bit of feedback. Whoa, Lord. Saints have mercy. Are we good?
I think we're good.
Okay. Whew, Lord, that was one thing. Hey, Natural Legacy Products, what's going on? What's going on? So, like I was telling everybody, we are here for the final in our So Emotional series, right? So I know.
Okay, I'm sorry. We got really emotional.
Remember, they were like, go. It's just, it's that double fist, like,
and it's always the waist pumping thing going on, but
I'm not touching that.
I'm very self-aware about the waist pumping.
We're not talking about that right now, okay?
You're
We're
right.
talking about getting emotional, and this is our Ask Us Anything. So who I have with us here today is the indomitable, the one and only, the fabulous, the spectacular Coach Ham, and Ham the Coach. Brody, can you tell them why you're dope, Coach Ham? Tell them why you're dope.
Well, thank you for those beautiful 25 and 55 cents words. That is amazing. Oh, okay, you're right. That was like $50 words. So as the Money Moxy Kid, Retirement Money Moxy Kid herself has given me all the honor. I do appreciate being on this platform with you and sharing this space. So the reason why I am like semi-dope.
Hey,
you're right.
This because we're not doing that, right? Like we're not going to minimize ourselves or say I'm just okay. It takes a lot to be on this, right? By the way, I am also an emotional intelligence coach. So
that's very true.
Her right now. Hey, Tamika, what's going on?
Hey.
Wait a minute. Natural Legacy said, what? No, not talking about the waist pumping emotions. Anyway.
Right. So
start that over, sis.
Yeah.
Start that
All
over.
right. So we're going to just run this back. All right. So my name is Icona Brody Parham, and I am the CEO of Parham Associates or Parham Intelligence. We are an emotional executive firm that has decided that at some point in time, those who had just a hint of color was not deemed to fit to lead. So we decided we were going to create a firm basically around our 9-to-5s. Our whole purpose is to make sure that those who are in aspiring leadership positions have the proper resources and tools to do what it is that they were called to do. Point blank, period. So that is why we are here. And let's start talking about getting this money.
Okay, well, yeah. So let's start talking about getting this money, y'all. So if you've been following Permanent Wealth, we are all about tips, resources, budgets, insight on how you can help your parents age well, age powerfully with their own money, right? So this is Ask Us Anything. So I'm going to say, Tamika, hey, y'all, sis, what's your question? Okay, because, we can start it off with some basic questions that I know that we have, but we really want to hear from the audience and find out what it is that you're looking to hear from us in terms of how to have these money conversations with your parents, how to kind of, gird your loins just a little bit, gird your loins just a little bit. So we're talking about loins and pumping a little bit much.
This is our final episode. So pretty much we're letting the cat out the bag.
Let it out. So like Coach Ham, let's start it off with this. Why does money make people or make folks so vulnerable? And how do we go about changing that?
So here are a couple of things that I think a lot of times that we as just human beings forget. One, that buying is sensory and it's emotional. So let's put into a whole nother different perspective, right? So consider this, and this is just self-reflection for anybody. How do you normally feel when you have to balance your checkbook? And I know I'm old, or better yet, or pay your bills. Are you happy? Oh, okay. Yeah. Online, the thing, are you happy, fearful, excited, anxious, neutral? All of these things start to trigger a sensory response in our bodies. But also on the other side, it triggers that emotion. And I don't know about you, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, that anxiety hits. So of course, if you get paid on Saturday, you feel like you rolling in it. And then 30 minutes later, you're broker than broke can be because all these bills are about to hit. So I think a big point of trying to balance that emotional cocktail of adrenaline and dopamine, as well as trying to figure out exactly how much do I have to spend? What can I actually use? And how do I not create some type of anxiety around it becomes a much larger picture.
Well, you brought up a really good point, right? So folks are out here thinking that when you're retired, you're not living paycheck to paycheck, when in reality, you 100% are living paycheck to paycheck. Like if you thought that your moms and your pops was miserly when they were working, when I tell you, when they are waiting for maybe that disability check, that social security check, that veterans benefit check, that pension check, all of those checks are coming in. And those checks equate to their living expenses. Like this is what you're going to live on. It's not as if they get like one paycheck that can cover them, right? Like they might be getting, a third less of the money or 50% less of what they used to make in like straight cash in income, right? In earned income in terms of their retirement income. That sounded really weird. Anyway, they might be making less than half or more. Why am I having issues right now? They might be making less than half of what they were making in earned income. So each time those checks come in, they're actually adding those checks together. Hey, Dre, how you doing? You just got
Dre.
Because I cannot get the last name Valenzuela.
Yes.
Andrea. Did I say that right?
Yes. Andrea is my girl.
Do I have to roll with that? I feel like a roll goes with that.
Andrea's going to check you for that too. She's going to be like,
check me because I mean that with love.
Nope.
Don't check me. I'm saying that with love. I'm just making sure that my Latino, Latinx sisters, we all brethren because we're all connected by the diaspora. Okay. So I just want to point out like that anxiety can be even higher for a retired parent because it's no longer a situation where they're counting one check that's coming in, or two checks that are coming in over the course of a month that equal their pay, right? They're counting a check that comes the first week, maybe two checks come the second week, and a third check comes the third week. And then they got to make sure that that money is stretched across that time period, across that month until they get that next check. So it's not as easy to sit here and say, I'm just going to chop up the money. Oh, this is what gets paid during this, 2-week time frame, and this is what gets paid during the next 2-week time frame. It's almost like you have to relearn what to do with your money because you're no longer on like this typical, I get paid twice a month or even once a month. It's like I get paid at these different time periods. And at any point, this amount of money that I make could shrink in value due to inflation. So, there's definitely a lot of anxiety about tracking the money and keeping it straight just so that you can actually pay the bills.
And it's not even just the parents, right? Well, let's talk about just our generation. I mean, let's kind of bring it down to a more granular level. So could you honestly tell me, could you go an entire month without spending your future income on a credit card?
So as I'm a recovering credit card user, okay, I recognize it even within myself. Like, look, let me just keep it real. I don't want to sit here and act like one of those individuals that have this perfect life where I am debt free or, don't use credit cards or any of those situations. No, sis, I 100% do use those things. What I'm very aware of is I recognize that I'm a giver and I tend to like to give this advice and help everybody else, right? And this is something that I've had a conversation with plenty of people on, but it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I realized like, look, I need to be taking care of me. So I actually went out and got help for me, where I could go to somebody else and they could provide me with strategies, talk to me about my money. Because before that point, I didn't do it. It was just, oh, I'll figure it out. Natural Legacy Products said, nope. Matter of fact, first of all, she said matter, not even matter, but matter. Okay. Matter of fact, about to swipe right now. And that's the reality. I think that it's very important to recognize that, are we aware of that, or are we just kind of glazing over it and moving forward? I'm very aware of it. And because I'm aware of it, it actually slows me down considerably. Like I had to buy something this past week for my business, right? So that I could be competitive. And it was like, do I have the cash for this right now? No, I do not. Or more, I don't want to give up the cash for it right now.
Right.
So it was like, okay, what am I willing to do? It's like, all right, I'm going to put this on a credit card, but am I willing to come up with a plan to actually pay it off? And I actually made the commitment to pay it off within 2 months so that I wouldn't carry it moving forward, even though it is a business expense, which typically I am able to write that off in my taxes. So it's really easy to say, oh, it's kind of like that whole, oh, get you that LLC sense so that you can write everything off. Like, listen, it's still money.
Right.
And you still have to kind of deal with that situation.
But also think of it from the perspective of FOMO, right? Like it's the fear of missing out. So it's one of those, I need to swipe now because if I don't swipe, it'll either be gone or it becomes more money later or it's inflated, whatever the excuse that you end up making for yourself because you just decided that you're just going to go ahead and swipe, then that's usually how it is. So even for the business perspective that you just brought up, the one big thing, especially for us emotional intelligence coaches, is saying, look, keep your feelings out of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, at this point, this day and age, for feelings, those are long gone. So when we start realizing that in our moment to moment, these dominant feelings that start to erupt, they cannot necessarily determine our level of success. Mm-hmm. They will also experience from our emotional side, but also our financial side. We're going to have to be able to find, once again, a way to damper down that emotion so it doesn't affect our pockets.
Well, you know what? And I want to give a shout out to the Cash Lineals. The Cash Lineals are in the house and they do some amazing things in terms of investment groups. So I'm feeling kind of blessed right now. Thank you for coming through. But you know what? Let's talk about it, right? There are a lot of retired parents that, when they retire, they get side gigs. They start businesses. It's a slippery slope, right? And it's kind of like, how aware are we of what's happening with that money? Like, first of all, like if they've already started to claim Social Security benefits, if they're also working, you actually get paid less money, right? So it's kind of like, in some ways, like unemployment. If anybody has been on unemployment, raise your hand. I've been on unemployment 2.5 times. 2.5 times, half time, because by the time they sent me the money, I got rehired by the company, you know what I mean? Or brought back into the company, you know what I mean? And so we have to kind of be aware of the emotions. Like, imagine you retire, you've been working 40 to 60 hours a week, pay period, 40, pay period. I'm off today, 40 hours a week plus per week. And then you find yourself doing like absolutely nothing. Getting a gig, a side gig, or, starting a business is a thing. But then you also have those expenses for the business. You know what I mean? And you want to be sure. Hey, we got Frugal Freddy is in the house. What's going on, Frugal Freddy?
Hey.
These are also the people, look, these are the brothers that give some amazing advice on investments and creating investment clubs. So if you don't know who they are, please make sure that you are following the Cash Lineals and Frugal Freddy. And why all of a sudden do I have like a lash in my eye? Insanity. Guys, this is what happens. What up, family? This is what happens on IG Live. We keep it real all the way live. I want to make sure that you guys are dropping your questions in the box. So just in case, we want to make sure that we're taking some questions. Coach Ham, I got another question for you though.
What's up?
Look, so we've been rocking for a few weeks now, right? We've talked about everything from parents struggling with money, financial, family financial planning, how to, why wealth as a core value for your family is important and what it takes to really kind of manage the behaviors that our parents have about money, but also really us, right? Like, how do we manage ourselves when we're talking to our parents about their money? What do you think that maybe we missed during this series? Like, what should the audience be thinking about when it comes to emotions, money, and their parents?
I think one of the biggest things is trying to figure out where the money resides. I know we keep on going back to that infamous money resides.
We just want to do this. That's all.
Just for us. That's it. So the big thing is trying to figure out, so what's the advantages of being financially and emotionally intelligent? There has to be some type of balance. So letting go of those stereotypes. Now that we're financially wealthy, we can keep on spending like we used to. No. Yeah. Who deeply feels that extent of our humanity, right? Who keeps looking for the existence. We look for those existences based off of the card that we're swiping, the credit, the debit. And as that starts to roll into, it's then starting to say, hey, I want to own our lives emotionally and financially, but how do I do that? It's the beliefs. It's what I learned. It's what I can do. It's the unlearned conscious association. By also saying, I'm going to challenge that money belief that I've had for some time. And how do I do that? I start to think about the decisions that I make when I swipe. Did you honestly take stock? And how did you feel in the moment when you made a financial transaction? Was it that emotion of excitement because it got something that you wanted? Or was it the fear of swiping? And then it's the anxiety that comes behind it because it's buyer's remorse.
Right. So wait, I want to interrupt real quick because Frugal Freddie actually said something. He said that I'm dreading to have that in caps convo with my parents. And the face that he put up there was kind of real. And I want to take a second to talk about it because that dread could sometimes be more scary than the actual conversation. Like the feeling that it's going to be bad can actually create a situation where it is bad, as opposed to thinking how it can be a positive situation or a positive outcome. Something that you said earlier about how important it is to really kind of dive into the emotions and recognize why you're making a particular decision regarding your money, why your parents are making a particular decision regarding your money. That is what parental wealth really strives to do when our parents get to aging powerfully, right? Like, this is when they're acting independently. This is when they recognize their behaviors and they are stopping them in their tracks. They're like, you know what? I would have done that in the past, but that's not what we're going to do. We're going to make a better decision about this money now. And I think, I like to tell people that's probably some of the best moments for me personally, especially as it relates to my own parents, is when they talk together and make a money decision and then tell me, hey, we've decided to do X. And I literally sit back like, you guys make me so proud. So proud. Like, I literally just be like, I'm going to have some tears right here. Like, when my parents were like, we're going to replace you with the Geek Squad. I was like,
wow, Best Buy.
Really? And they were like, yes, because this way, when you come down to visit, you could just hang out with us. You don't have to put together the nest, because I don't know how to put together a nest, but they would have said, ask me to put together the nest, right? I don't know how to do that, but they would have said, do that.
YouTube videos.
Exactly. They would have said all of that stuff. They were like, nah, we can afford it. This is something that makes our life easier. And then the people, because we pay for them, they have to talk to us versus us getting on your nerves. And I was just like, I got nothing. Frugal Freddie said the roles will reverse, especially as our parents age. Hey, so you know what, Frugal Freddie, I actually push back really hard on that, right? Because I think it's very easy to sit here and think that, well, you know what, I become the parent and then my parent becomes the child. I'm telling you right now, that is an easy way to get your entire throat cut by your parent, because the difference here is that your parent, unless they are experiencing, dementia Alzheimer, a health issue. They are a fully functioning adult that has a history with money and has a certain way of being around their money and what they want to do with it. So if you decide all of a sudden to say, oh, well, you know what? Now I'm the parent, like, right? Like, look at me. You see me? Look at me. I'm the captain now. They're going to be like, no, actually, you're not. And then what do you have left? You got nothing. You know what I mean?
Like, looky here, Frederick, you sit down.
Right. Like, you know, like, who are you? I birthed you. Like, that's how you kind of get into that, like, rabbit hole of, like, that you can never dig yourself out of. Not even a rabbit hole. I think of it like, I don't know, like, you know, that part in Star Wars where he went down this. Okay, never mind. Anyway, that's my nerd moment.
So when we're talking about that, and I know if Frugal Freddy had checked out the YouTube series last week, we were talking about building these relationships as being a family core value. So understanding that you need to have a really solid why to have this conversation with your parents. So are you able to develop a deep and meaningful relationship when it comes to money ties, financial ties? Because the common denominator between the experience that you will have compared to the experience that I have is that I explained to my parents how deep my why was for them. You know, and it was simple as that. Like, I needed them to understand the feeling that came with the money talk, if you will. Also, having us work together in order for it to shape our, not just our personal lives, but we're also talking business and we're talking legacy. So for the children and the churn, and all of those extra churn. Right. So you want to be able to have a conversation, but you also want to make money fun again.
Yes.
So how can we make money fun?
Oh, there's so many ways to make money fun. You know what I mean?
Please do tell.
Oh no, there's so many ways. Listen, I have a ball because I end up giving my parents challenges, right? Like, part of making wealth a core family value is you also understand, like, what makes your parents tick, right? Like, what are their habits? What are the things that they do regularly, right? Like, so my mom, like, you're wearing a scarf right now, right?
Yes.
My mom,
shout out to Mom C,
loves Joanne fabrics. Like, when I tell you, she got a head wrap in every color under the sun, every print known to mankind, every paisley ever invented. Okay,
she's on her Baduism. Let her do what she does.
Not even Badu. Like, first of all, she likes watercolors. She mixes the colors together. She'll put 3 wraps together and tie it. And I just look at her and I'm just like,
my head hot.
Right. You know what I mean? And so one of the challenges that I gave my mom, because I was like, look, you know, I don't think you need any more head wraps. And she was like, I know, right? I said that. I was like,
the devil is a lie and he don't live here.
Right. And she was like, well, I disagree. I was like, okay, well, tell you what, how about you tell me how many black, white, and different color head wraps you got, and then we'll figure out what you need. And she was like, okay, fine. After she finished counting and rearranging and color coding her entire collection, this woman was like, I don't need any more head wraps. She had like 10 black head wraps, 15 white ones.
I mean, but
blue ones.
But to her justification, black does get dirty and so does white. And you need a re-up. I'm just saying.
You know what? And that's why we got bleach tablets. And that's also why we got color protectant. Okay. So, like, no, Natural Legacy said, leave mama her head wraps. I did. We still gave her a budget. But what we did was we tried to show her that, look, you don't need as many. So once you hit your limit on this budget every month, because it wasn't about cutting her off. And I think a lot of people think that it's about cutting off your parents or cutting off that thing that you love doing so much in order to say that I am going to be fiscally responsible. It's not about cutting off your money or cutting off that thing that brings you joy. It's really about harnessing that thing. I want to make sure faking frugal girl, whoever you are, and I said girl because it's pink, and I know that's a stereotype, so I'm sorry, I apologize, but faking frugal, I don't know who you are, but I need to know your questions because I love that. I love that name. Right. Natural Legacy said, so how would you get around the thought process of, quote unquote, you are asking about my coins because you want my coins? Oh, yes.
So it goes back to the same thing we've been talking about. You need to start doing those I statements. So I, your child, am worried about our financial safety, not because I'm waiting for you to knock off for me to go ahead and get what's mine, but I want you to live a very fruitful, long lasting life and not feel like I need to put you in a home. Because jokingly, I used to tell my parents that, but now that they're older, I was like, let me stop telling them that because they actually legit gonna think I'm gonna put them in a home. Right. So all of that to say is, look, here is my why we need to start talking about the money portion. And it's not for me or any other reason, but to make sure we have stuff laid out, because at some point in time, life will happen. People get sick. And when they get sick, and if they cannot speak for themselves, and I don't know exactly what it is that they want or they need, I don't want to make a bad judgment call because I was too ignorant, too stubborn, and too scared to tell them exactly how I felt and what they wanted as their ending years came. So
if I had a mic, I would drop it.
I didn't even get the horn.
I didn't even have that. No,
man.
I didn't have that ready. I'm sorry, man. But you know what? That's a really good point. I also want to point out the fact that, listen, and I just want to warn you, I'm a little bit more bolder than most. So like if somebody's coming to me, a mom, an auntie, I don't care who or what you are. Like if you're coming to me, you're like, you're asking me about my coins because you want my coins. And I'm like, yeah, I want your coins to work for you. I also want your coins to work for me because guess what? If they're not working for you, that means I have to pay. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I want to figure out how we can come together and figure out a way for you to be as independent as possible for as long as possible, for you to have live your best retired life, okay? Mm-hmm. And for me to not have to pay for it. And I mean, that's real stuff. It's real stuff. You know what I mean? And sometimes you're going to have those conversations with your parents that are going to be all the way live. There's nothing wrong with a healthy dissension. You know what I mean? In conversation. I'm not even going to call it an argument, but nothing's wrong with fighting fair, right? Like as long as you're fighting fair, like we all have disagreements with friends and family. Are you somehow not supposed to have a disagreement with your mama just because back in the day, if she looked at you wrong, you would have frozen in place?
Right.
I mean, but
yeah, there's also those weird things of cultural, like our generation compared to theirs, we're willing to talk openly about certain things that was taboo back in the day. So having to find those ice-breaking moments to start sliding in these conversations gently, I want to say forcefully say, all right, y'all, we about to have a come to Jesus family meeting. I need everyone's wallet out. I need to look at all your stuff. That's not going to work.
Yeah, it's hard.
I think if we're going to start creating a financially, emotionally intelligent legacy, we're going to have to start asking people about what it is that they want. And it's not necessarily to say, what do you want financially? But it'll say, hey, if we don't have this conversation now, what do you want people to say at your eulogy?
That's real. That's real. That's real. I mean, it might even also be saying, if we don't have this conversation now, where do you want me to tell the government that you would prefer to live? Yeah, I mean, look, if we have to have that conversation and if folks are, having that stubborn, kind of thought process, I want us to think about it. A lot of us on here are entrepreneurs, right? And we are taught constantly like, yo, when you state your price, you do it unflinchingly. You don't back down and you just hold it and you put it out there and you let it land. It's the same thing. We're having these conversations with our parents. Sometimes you just need to let it land. So like, if you are unwilling to do the work now, so that you can be comfortable later, please tell me, where would you like me to make sure that they put your body? Because you're not allowing me to help you right now.
Right.
That's fine because you're grown. But I want to be clear that if you let me help you, you can have a lot more control and a lot more access and a lot more fun. You know what I mean? And just really do. I think a key question is asking, where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years? Like, what experiences do you want to have? You know what I mean? And that's a question that I have asked just to make sure, like, hey, are you even moving in the direction that you say you want to go in? Or are you making decisions, right? Like, are you like, are you not making a decision based on a new opportunity, but you're making a decision out of fear and paralysis or, and that's something, right? Like, I was going to ask a little bit about this later, but I'll save that question because we have a comment from KB Power. Hey, KB Power. Nothing wrong with having a strong opinion about something that is extremely important.
Right. But there's a very thin line about having a strong opinion and not having an emotional statement to follow it, because your parents do not want you to sound financialese. They don't want to sound like you're a bank. That's not going to work for them. Right. And if it does, to each his own, that's great. But I know for most families, if you have baby boomer parents, you speaking that financialese is not going to get to the end game for you, which is basically trying to figure out what it is that you need to do to make sure your parents are equipped.
Right. I think we want to think about it like an emotional sandwich, right?
Right.
Start with the emotional, go into what the financial aspect is, and then close it with the next piece of emotion. You got to give them understand. It's kind of like when you're giving somebody bad news or you're giving somebody a negative review. If any of y'all are bosses out there, you got to talk to somebody like you're just not doing that great. Sometimes you have to kind of sandwich it. Start off with, let me tell you what you are doing great. And this is what you're doing wonderful. Let me tell you what needs some work. This area. And then, but I really appreciate your drive and I appreciate how you're moving. Like, imagine doing that with your parents, right? Imagine saying like, hey, mom, dad, I see you out here and y'all hustling hard. But let me tell you why I think that that's kind of a problem that you're hustling this hard. It tells me, it kind of gives me a flag that maybe there's a way I could be helping you so that you don't have to hustle, but rather you choose to hustle. But listen, I respect the fact that you will hustle hard. Like, that's how you raised me. And because of that, I'm very aware of what's going on. And I want to bring that same hustle to what's going on with you.
So then here's a question, right? So let's just say we try to breach the conversation in the beginning with our parents. They're not having it. So then what do you do? Because I think we've kind of had that conversation before, that I've tried to have that conversation and they were just basically, they shut down. They were like, nah, we'll get to that. We'll talk about that later. Right. And later never came. I still think I'm like 10 laters behind. So I guess what would you tell that individual or that kid? What's the other strategy?
Okay, so let me ask you something. Do you got a pen or a paper or whatever around you?
Sure do.
Awesome. Pick it up.
It's a card though.
All right, cool. Do me a favor and listen to what I'm saying here, okay? You ready? With the pen. Just hold the pen up so I can see it, right? What I want you to do is I want you to try to drop the pen. Nah, you dropped it. Pick it up.
You just said try to drop a pen. Did y'all just hear?
Yeah, I think they heard me. But listen, I want you to pick it up.
Okay. All right.
Pick it up. Okay. I want you to try to drop the pen. You just holding it. Are you trying to drop it? No. Is that a try?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
That was my try, man. Like,
okay. So that's just going through, right? Did you drop it? Or is it just there?
It's just like hanging on by a thread. So if y'all can't see it,
hanging on by the thread. The point that I'm trying to make here is like, there is no try. There's only do, as the great Yoda said. The reality is that you have to stay steady. It's not about trying for 1 month and then forgetting for the next 3 or saying that, well, they're not receptive, so I'm done. It's about staying steady. So if you have a conversation with your parents every week and every 2 weeks you say, I'm going to bring this up, bring it up every 2 weeks consistently, because 9 times out of 10 parents, like, they want to see if you're really about it. Like, think about any organization, any manager, any, situation where we're trying to sit here and get clients and stuff. People want to know if you really are about it. And if you decide, hey, look, I'm really not, then that's exactly, that is what is going to happen. I think I went to my parents at least 3 to 4 separate times, like, hey, so what's going on? Hey, so what's going on? Hey, so what's going on? And I firmly got the listen, we're in charge of this. You're not. And I'm like, yeah, you're in charge with it, but I am your child. And so therefore I'm in this. There's no separation here. Like, it doesn't mean that you get to deal and it doesn't like fall on me. So we gotta have this conversation. Like, and it's gonna happen. Like, because I love you. It's gonna happen. You know what I mean? I want to make sure
just stick them on you. That's what'll happen.
I mean, you can do that too. People give me their parents all the time, and I call them auntie. What up, unc? All of that. KB Power. We are currently in a pandemic, and if something were to happen, would everything already be in order? If it's not, who's responsible for putting it in order?
Ooh. 1, 2, 3, not it. Go ahead, you handle that one.
Cool. So yeah, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and I gotta ask, how many people know where the important papers are? Do you have a key to the safety deposit box? Do you have the pink paper with what they want for like their last, wishes? I have a meeting set up with my parents this weekend. If anybody's following me, you'll see that part of our fiscal year 2021 goals is to have a caregiving plan. I was like, yo, I love y'all, and y'all age like fine wine, and you cute too. And if y'all ever, watch my stories on, on Instagram, you saw my parents are super cute, especially in the matching Star Wars pajamas. But I was like, yo, for this year, we get to get a little focus. It's a whole pandemic, and it's been a challenge. And so I set up meetings with them every quarter, and we work on big items. How often do you have meetings with them? I want to give a shout out to the Lotus Legacy. Y'all, if you are not following the sis at the Lotus Legacy, something is wrong. Make sure you are following her at Lotus Legacy. Tiffany is the bomb. Go ahead and make sure you're doing that. I want to make sure I get this. I used the sudden death of a family member. This is faking frugal. I used the sudden death of a family member to breach the conversation about final arrangements and finances. And boom, exactly right. I want to wait a minute. The time is 8:37. We actually are coming close to our time. Make sure that you are following us on YouTube. The link is in my bio. Tap link in bio so that you can follow us on YouTube, because I think we're going to try and keep this conversation going for a little bit while longer. So make sure that you're following us. But can you talk about that? Like, what are the emotions that she tapped into, or faking frugal? Again, I'm making an assumption. I'm sorry. Faking frugal tapped into when they used the sudden death of a family member to breach the conversation about final arrangements and finances. Coach Ham?
That is fear. And I would say that's fear from the perspective of the parent, not even the kid. Like, from the kid's perspective, that is exactly what it is. And she was like, yes, she. Yes, she. That is exactly, it's fear-based, right? Because no one really wants to talk about death unless you work in a funeral home. But when you start talking about death and you start laying out certain things, like having actual plans. So I think we've had this conversation before. I was maybe in high school or college, and I remember my parents sitting me down as well as a funeral planner, and they planned out their entire funeral. And I mean, we got extremely emotional. I remember I was a lot younger because it probably was around high school time. But for me to watch my parents not necessarily argue, I'll say quarrel about, are we going to be side to side, or we going to be on top of each other? And my mother's exact response was, if you ain't on top of me now, you ain't going to be on top of me in the afterlife. I said, well, all right. Don't know what that means. Because at that point I was like 16, 17. I was like, all right, dead man on top. But it made sense, right? So watching them plan everything out to say, you know what? And they bougie. So for them to be like, well, I want gold trim. I'm like, man, just put me in a Nike box and call it a day. But,
first of all, listen, if you want to have your high heel Christian Louboutin red shoes on,
in my Nike box.
Cross, like Aretha Franklin did, because she made sure her legs were crossed.
Oh, my joint's going to be glued to my feet. So none of y'all steal my joints. So I'm going to make it clear. That's probably under my red bomb's going to say a couple of names, say, do not touch. I know you. You got sticky fingers. Do not touch. Don't make me haunt you in 24 hours. Okay. But all right. All of that to say is I sat and I watched them. And then they started to explain a little bit more, like, we don't want to put this burden on you. And for anyone out there that is the only child, shout out to the only children in the house. Whoop, whoop. That's us. So the difference between myself versus those who have multiple siblings is that they didn't want to place the burden on their only kid, because not only am I going to have to emotionally deal with the loss of a parent or parents, but also now we're talking the finance. This is all going to just hit. And they decided in their earlier times, like, look, we're not going to do this. We know that you were going to be dealing with a lot at that time. So let's just go ahead and just do it for the one time. So they ended up deciding going with a, what are those things that you see in New Orleans? Like those more the above ground ones, like you can go inside and sit.
Oh Lord! If anybody
whatever,
got the answers out there, but basically it's like where the ancestors with you can visit and they got the little drawers and stuff.
Yep, that's them. That's what they said they was going to do. I said, you can still put me in a Nike box, but all right. So all of that to say, to come around full circle, and even for Fake and Frugal, is it's fear-based. No one wants to have to necessarily talk about death until you're literally on somebody's deathbed. And the worst thing we as kids can do is start saying, so, hey girl, I know you got stage 4 cancer, but what you want to do next week? Because I don't think you're going to make it, hun.
Right.
Like,
No.
Time short.
Natural Legacy Product said it's a crypt. Thank you, sis, because we were struggling 100% on that.
Y'all can come visit me in my box.
No, but you know what? I mean, I don't know. Have you tried that same kind of tactic to a certain extent with your own parents? Like, they decided, hey, look, because we don't want to put this burden on you, we're going to sit with you and do this. And for me, I would flip it and say, well, look, because I don't want you to put this additional burden on me, we need to have another meeting, because it's been about 20 years. I might be dating you. Maybe, 20.
Oh my God.
But you are well preserved, sis. Well preserved.
Wow. You clean that up real good. What you think my name is, Smuckers?
Yes.
My nickname is Smuckers?
Absolutely. Butterfly, Fly, join us. What's going on? Make sure you drop your questions in the bottom. We actually have, I think, about 7 more minutes, but make sure that you are following us on YouTube, just in case we decide to continue this conversation. So I think the bigger thing is like, you gotta use the triggers that your parents have also kind of used with you to a certain extent, right? Like, because they are familiar with those things. You got to understand. And this is actually something that I've been talking about, because this whole month I've been talking about emotions, right? Well, everybody knows about the pleasure principle, right? Like, or maybe they don't, like, and I mean, like, yes, Janet, to a certain extent, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I had to do that. I practiced that back in the day with her Rhythm Nation, practice that. But the pleasure principle is really about how things are embedded within us, right? Fight, flight, freeze. You know what I mean? The more you find things that are familiar to your parents and leverage those things that they already have some comfort with, the easier it is to get things across. So the way I look at it is, if Mom Duke sat me down 16 years ago, like, hey, look, so because I don't want you to go through this, we're going to have all of this paperwork. We're going to decide on what we want to do. My thing is like, oh, okay, great. So guess what? It's time for a new one, because we need an update. That thing that you did 20 years ago, it's not as relevant now. You're in a completely different space. And guess what? It's going to be a burden on me. And as far as I know, you said that you don't want to be a burden to me. Has that changed? So, okay, great. This is a great way for us to continue moving forward. Let's set a meeting. And sometimes it's setting a meeting with another individual, right? Because I think there was another individual at that meeting when, it's having somebody else in there to kind of be that buffer for that conversation. I mean, when I had the conversation about what do my parents want, how do they want to, die? It literally was like, I don't want you to just have a good life. I want you to also have a good death. And a good death is being as in control as possible for my parents. And, we blubbered, just all the tears. Okay. We were a mess. But by the third conversation about that, we were very straightforward about, okay, this is what I want. It's not what I want. And we went from there. So we have about 4 minutes. I'm like, I just want to give a shout out. We got 4 minutes left just to kind of make sure. But go ahead, Brody.
So I think the big thing that is a huge takeaway for all of us is identifying the feelings is essential to understanding our financial decisions.
It is. So I don't know. Like, I mean, that was a drop my. Can you add
Now,
this?
now, so I was just playing. So when we start
I'm not letting you
identifying
get
those,
away with that.
I was like, oh, this is good. So when we start talking about just the identification of your emotions, and if you don't have an emotional wheel, you should download it. Google emotion wheel, and it will have a plethora of emotions that are outside of your basic 12 that you normally use. But the big thing is that these emotions are either going to help motivate a process that will either lead to certain actions, or it's going to help you identify some of those feelings and triggers that can help you start to make those changes and alter the action. So you have to make the decision. Do you identify it early, or do you start to contain it in order for these actions to start being laid out in the future?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So listen, we probably got about 2 more minutes, I think, before the IG folks kick us off. Listen, Coach Ham, can you tell them where folks can find you if they want to, go a little deeper?
Well, they can find me, of course, in the clubhouse at Hamlet Coach, also here on IG, Hamlet Coach, and everywhere else. Parham Intelligence. Check me out. Link in the bio. Get on the website. Also, get your flip book. Forgot. Sorry about that.
Right. So as a matter of fact, Coach Ham right now has a full course that is available, including with the workbook. I've seen it. It's absolutely fabulous. If you want to get your emotional intelligence way up, she is the person to do it. Oh, we got hearts. Thank you. And so we really appreciate your time, guys. If you are not doing it already, make sure that you are following me on YouTube, where we absolutely talk about all the things parental wealth so that our parents can build wealth with their own money. Okay, so really appreciate it. My name is Demelza. I'm your girl, the Retirement Money